Hello, welcome to my channel. It's good to have you here. My name is Gemma. I am a criminologist, mother, and an advanced cultist. And today I'm going to talk about how we are. I'll get into a little story first. So, I'll go in with a story. You know, we don't need to express a beginning, middle, and end all the time, do we? So, in this one, I'm going to talk about how they've been using child labour and how we've been talking about, how they don't really talk about this in the media. You might find it somewhere, if you read. There's lots of avenues to understand in the media. They sit on either side. You do get some good ones and you just get some that fob you off, right? So we have to understand the dichotomy that plays out there. And then we have to understand as well that we have to really depict an understanding that things are going on in our world still today that involve child labour or that install an aspect that inhibits people to developing their minds, right? So they stop us. They might stop these people, these children, right? Because they're children, aren't they? Their mind's still developing. They're still kids, right? So we have to understand that what areas this can sort of take place, right? And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'll try though, because it's YouTube. But if you don't listen, obviously don't listen. If you're sensitive and stuff, like just shut off. But I am going to be going into stuff like things of nature such as child abuse that's socially accepted within a society in different countries, but it's also hidden in some other countries as well. And this is kind of like what sort of pushes a narrative of, oh, we're civilized, and because it's in law, but they're not adhering to a law, right? Or they're doing it behind the backs, or they're making it up, or they're just hiding stuff, right? They're just hiding stuff, right? So we don't see a truth about what's going on with children in this world, right? So Royal Archangel Gabriella, right? So I'm here to sort of bring a message that this shouldn't be happening. This shouldn't be taking place. We should be looking after our children, okay? Because they are the future. And if you don't want a future, if you don't want the children, to have a good future, if you don't want these things, well then you have to understand that you're probably not part of the human race. You're not part of wanting a progression, okay, within life. You have to understand that I studied this in criminology. I went into deep roots and understand what it's like to go through this stuff. I've already practiced. Okay, how to sort of like you get people who've been years at like judges, for example, they're doing years of work, and they've had to read through so much awful stuff. You think these people have got to like really clean themselves out to sort of like keep going. Some of them just look really fresh as out, and I'm just like, how can you look fresh if you do this all the time? Like, anyway, so we really have to understand that there's a difference between people who have understandings of this. It might not affect them, it might not affect them, it might affect them. People can switch off, people can't switch off as well, which is interesting, so we do have to learn to switch off from these things, okay? But at the same time, you got to realise these children, they can't switch off because they're going through it, and it's sad. It's really sad because it's almost like they're used as unimportant things, and they actually are very important. Okay, everything has a meaning as well. Just because you got a load of dosh don't mean that it's gonna fulfill you. Right, some other things have to fulfill you. Okay, so we've got to understand, like, let's go into factories. Where there's big corporations that rule factories in different countries, right? So they get them to make stuff for like next to nothing, right? I watched a documentary once about it. They take the kids on a bus, right, on a coach or something like that. They'll do stuff like this in a different country. Yeah, in a different country. I'm talking about specifically like taking them to work, and then they work, and then they do their job, and then they go home, and they literally get tuppence. And then you got the mums and dads, and they're at home, but they don't want them to do it. They want the kids to do it, which is interesting, isn't it? So they take them off, and they work for a corporation, like really big brands, really expensive things. They might make handbags, £500 pop. Never would buy one of them anyway. So big handbag, and really nice handbags, and that you walk around in your whatever store, and you got these handbags, and they're expensive. You just look at them all and think, who made them? Probably a load of kids that got paid tuppence for it, or women that got paid nothing, next to nothing for it, right? But I'm talking about kids. So this is sweatshops and stuff like this. So you might get a kid. Let's go like this. You might get a kid working in a corporate, obviously, but in the sticks, in the east, or something like that. Because usually this happens in like Philippines, or I've seen made in stuff like that, not just China, but they make clothes and things like this, right? They're taught at a very young age. So you got to think how clever these kids are. Absolutely smart as out, right? These kids can make stuff like this. Wow, right? So they give them nothing, next to nothing. So next time you're walking, and you're walking around in a really posh shop, and think, wow, this is amazing because I've got this, I've got that, and this is a big, this is big. Oh, I made it in life because I'm able to buy this £500 bag. It's just got a name on it that looks exactly the same and identical to the one you got from Primark a month later, and the kids both probably got the same amount of money for it. It breaks me heart. Yeah. Because they don't really understand the true significance of child abuse. It's child abuse, because they're getting next to nothing for it. And you get the corporates, and they all bag the money. And you got really big brands, they do it, and they take the money for it, and these kids ain't got nothing. It's just like they made about 20 bags in a day, and that's how much is that? £500 a bag, 20 bags, 10 bags a day, £500. Absolutely taking mick, right? Taking mick. Why? It's because, right, that they're probably getting the same amount of money as what you would get if you bought a bag from Primark, right? And it's consumerism, but right, it's not about that really. Ultimately, so you have to understand what a corporate's first priority is. When you see that, well, it's not the children, is it? It's not a child-centered approach, right? They're not taking child-centered approaches, right? They're just absolutely not taking child-centered approaches in these underpinnings. So we have to understand, if they're not taking child-centered approaches, who is taking the child-centered approach? Well, it's not their law, is it, either? Because they're letting them do it, right? So who's protecting these children? Nobody's protecting them. And the mum might not be able to get a job because they've probably destabilised her from getting a job, so they can take the kids and take them into and work in house labour, right? And she might have 3 kids, take the kids and go to work, and then they come back with whatever the wages. And this is what happens. This happens. It's quite disturbing, really, isn't it? I mean, what do they do with them all day? Who's protecting them? I don't understand why this is happening, right? So obviously things like that need to be changed, but nothing's changing because in the Western world it's accepted because they're buying the bags. So it's almost like you're bothered about, you know, gay pride and not being accepted in Iraq, but you're not bothered about the bags that you're selling in your top companies with all kids that you just took out sweatshops to do it. You haven't took them out, are you? You haven't helped that. There's no human rights. You're not underpinning human rights. You're more bothered about gay pride in Iraq. You're fighting religion with understanding that's more important than and a sexuality than you are the kids and the kids' rights, children's rights, right? You don't see them all banging on about that. You don't see the presidents talking about that. You don't see them doing that, do you? Right? This is interesting because you don't see it, right? It's not big on the agenda, okay? So what do people do? They forget. They forget this is taking place. They forget these things, right? And it's sordid. That's a truth because it's real. It happens all the time. And just because it's not under your, like, it's under your nose because, you know, you can see the bags. But what kind of people are walking in there buying them? So they don't really care, do they? I mean, these people are going in there buying these bags out. Where to get their money from? Like, what are they doing? Like, what is going on round here? Right? What is going on round here? Because if it's socially acceptable in the Western world, and you got these little kids in the East making all these handbags and these clothes, and then they were bothered about Primark, weren't they? At one point, I think Primark got stung for it. But you got to think, oh, these other big ones. I'm not going to mention any names, but oh, these other big corps, right? They're all doing it. And no one's bothered about the fact that, you know, the children's human rights are infringed. I mean, there's been loads of documentaries about sweatshops. Have a look. Sweatshops. Documentaries. And you'll see. And, you know, it's kind of worrying because have you seen, like, the managers who oversee it? The managers who oversee it. And you're just thinking, has he been CRB checked? I mean, yeah, these people haven't even been CRB checked. You know, you think, oh, these people are just like taxi men or whatever. Well, they're taking kids here, there, and everywhere. You think they'd be CRB checked as well, right? So you've got to think, like, the reality of this. Like, that they're probably not CRB checked to have kids around them. So what, they've got kids around them in the first place. And I bet you any money, some of the kids don't even go back home. So now this obviously gets on to other things like child trafficking and stuff like this, which I don't agree with, and I think it should stop immediately. So yeah, on this topic, I think it should stop immediately. I think they should be obviously teaching the mothers to go and go to work, and you know, there must be a safe place, or the father should go to work instead, and there must be a safe place for the children to be. I mean, half them places don't have schools and stuff like this, so you know, what are they going to work for? They need to be at home being taught, right? They need to be being taught stuff and being allowed to be a child, allowed to develop their minds. So we're supposed to take that in the Western world as you know, legit, like this is meant to be how it happens, but it's not. It's not. We don't take child-centered approaches in the Western world and in the Eastern world. All right. So you got people gobbing off saying, "Oh, this country needs to do this. This country needs to do this," and it's just like, what, you need to sort your own country out first. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, you really need to sort your own country out first. So let's get into this. You know, let's get into this. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to get in trouble. But you know, we're not really taking a child-centered approach in this country at the minute. You know, like I've said, with lots of children going in care, you know, a lot of these mums will never be able to see them children again, right? A lot of them, right? There's been, I've seen and heard stories when I was younger, and some of the reasons why the children were in care in the first place in my studies, when I studied criminology, that basically they weren't even supposed to be taken from their parents, and it come out afterwards. But because the children were so traumatised by their residential care treatment in the 70s, I think I read some stuff in the 70s. I think there was some in the 90s as well. I read some stuff. I watched documentaries as well about it. okay, pie and mash films. So there's some things that really disturbing, because it's almost like it was. I think the BBC said it was socially acceptable to have, people around people and young children, like Savile cases and stuff like this, and I think he was in care homes and that, just going to say hello to the kids. But obviously there's a positive side to that where it's natural, normal, and you just think that, and then there's a negative side to it. You think, well, what bloody hell's going on there, right? And it came out that like he was, with kids and stuff like that, right? And it's disgusting because they didn't actually really do a full inquest into that. There was never really anything that happened there. I think he was in Jersey and Guernsey and all sorts, right? He's travelling all over the joint. He was in and out everywhere. He had keys to it, I think. Keys, right? He had keys to the mental institutions and that, where the kids were and that, in the homes and stuff. So I think he just took keys, didn't he? Took the manager's keys and just was did what he wanted, right? And I think it came out afterwards that there was lots of things that were going on. He was into he was like necromancy, like a bit more sordid than that. But I don't want to say too much. If you want to look at it, just find it. There's documentaries about it. So nothing got done about it. Like, he was just loud. He was like, why? Because he's a millionaire? Is it because he had lots of money? Is it because he was stinking rich and, he just did what he wanted? And the BBC said there was a culture of it. It's like, well, sort it out then. And it was like 70s, an hour and 80s, 90s, and, it's 40 years, like, is it stopped, or is it still uncovered? Does it still need to be uncovered about these things that are going on? We need to protect our children. We need to protect the children, because number of people, kids go in care and the parents never seen them again. Like, this is recent, so this is sort of like what I'm trying to uncover. Because a lot of things are red taped in England, and there's a reality at play here where we need to do some more. We need to conduct more sting operations. We do need to care about these children. You need to put that. You need to put that understanding where there's a roof concept, and at the top we protect them, because they're at the top. Because once you start smashing down the pillars, that's it. It's all going to fall down. And it kind of is like smashing at pillars, because you're being ignorant not to conduct proper analysis. You just taken without understanding, because there's obviously a higher agenda at place, isn't there? There's a higher agenda at place. There's no support in these places. There's lack of support. You've got councils going against. They're not sitting in the middle. So even the councils aren't. So the councils are like here, and they're supposed to be sitting in the middle for the people, but they're not. They're going against people. Okay? So they're not actually being honest about what they're doing in the councils. And so they're going against. They're going against, even though they're supposed to be in a supportive area. And, this is happening through judiciary as well. They're not taking a child-centred approach. They're not taking a middle truth. They're just taking a position and then running with it. And it's an obfuscation of a truth. There's no reason to do this in the first place, apart from there must be a tariff. Okay? There must have been behind closed doors up there, round a bend, hiding somewhere, a tariff that was made to rise the children being in care. So why is this taking place? Because there's no support services anymore as well. So this is what's happening in the UK, in England, where it's red taped. So the reality is that instead of going off arguing with Iraq or some other countries and stuff like this, why don't you actually look at this situation and go, how can we help the people instead of just removing the children. Because in our country, they can't just go, oh yeah, we're going to do child labour, they've got to go to work, because that's illegal. Everyone will be like, hang on a minute, this is dodgy. We're not putting our kids to work, whatever. But instead what they're doing is they're just doing complete removals, right? It's happening. It's happening in our country, okay? It's happening. So, the reality is some people won't care, some people don't have kids, some people never studied, some people never really, a lot of people, some people are knee deep in it, don't know what to do as well. And, it's really about, bringing this out. It's about understanding that, even in your positions of power, you can contest this, because you might be a bloody good judge. And that is another thing. You might be a bloody good judge and you can contest it. You can contest these things. You can override decisions by coming together for a reason, okay? And, the reality is that a lot of these people can do that. Okay, they just need, signatures, sign. We agree that this shouldn't take place, and then all you sign it and agree that it shouldn't take place. What they're gonna do if you disagree? You're gonna lose your jobs. So what is really going on up there anyway? Up the blocks up there. Or is it down there? I'm not sure. Can't really figure it out anymore because it's probably down because that's where they're hiding, isn't it? So the reality is that we need to really come together as a society. It's not just one person doing it all and then being able to control the masses. That's what it feels like sometimes. But if we all come together and have issues like, stuff like sweatshops and things like this, or like, a mass extinction of children, really. I mean, not half of them aren't seen again. I read something as well that between the ages of 14 and 15, the stats are really low for boys and girls in care. And the stats are extremely low for these children that are in care. And it goes to that point where because it's really high, the children are, the graph, it goes up and then it goes to the children at about 13 to 15, it goes right down again and then it goes back up again. So it's like, where are all these kids, these 13 to 15-year-old kids? And there are a lot of kids that go missing around that age from care homes, and this is in the UK. So, and this, they say, I think I watched a documentary once about the police, and they said they were looking into it, and this was like 2019. But now it seems to me like they don't actually, they just liaise with the social service. They don't actually go beyond. They don't go from their own back and say, we're going to look for this child. They just kind of leave it. If they're in care and stuff like this, all it takes is one bad social worker to say, we're the kids are fine, they're okay, they're actually still alive, and they're well, and they're fed, and I've seen them earlier when actually they might not have seen them, or they might have, So a lot of these things, oh no, they must have gone missing the other day. So they let it drag on. They hide it, and a lot of these, coppers, they have trust in these people in these positions of power. I'm not saying it's the service itself, I'm saying that the people within it, because I've said this before, it might not necessarily be the service itself, it's just the people within it that have created the functions for it to be at a disadvantage in the first place, or that they children might go missing for longer periods of time, and or they might go missing completely, and it's been a couple of days, so you can't even pick it up where they've been, where they've gone. and the police just kind of liaise with the services, and then that's it. No one's really protecting them. And this is kind of like a fallacy that the police were talking about. I think there was a documentary in on Channel 4 in 2019 where they were looking for these children, but a lot of it's been destabilised, and they just sort of like remotely liaise with social services instead. And I just think that shouldn't happen. I think that they should be independent, and I think they should stay independent, because this is kind of how like corruption can sort of fester within our services. Like the umbrella concept. I've spoke about this before in my other videos, but I also wanted to say something else. So I just want to say that ultimately, like, this stuff shouldn't be happening in this world. We shouldn't be pushing these children into these spaces where they don't have anything. We should have people who actually are there just to sort of sit in the middle and sort of liaise with the people, instead of all standing on one side and creating a bunch of lies and not really helping the children, or really finding if there's a culprit to it and they're in that service, who is that culprit. And it's kind of like we've lost our footing in our services, as well as the UK, but obviously other places, but we've lost our footing with services due to how people are requiring something for that. So money, bribes, a bribe is actually an incentive as well. It's kind of a bribe, it is a bribe. We shouldn't be using incentives when it comes to children. You shouldn't be putting children in care for £1,000, per child. This is another thing that's been going on. They've been putting children in care for £1,000 per head to the social services and the workers who have been writing their assignments, basically. So it's kind of like they're taking more of a financial based system rather than a child-centered approach. And I think this needs to stop. And if it doesn't, what's going to happen is it's going to be a mass sacrifice of children, which I disagree with and shouldn't happen. And I think that we really need to now engage a very big concern, as I am illustrating it to you now. It's not just happening in other countries like that where child labour exists and they steal children from these places as well. They're not CRB checked, but then obviously in this country as well, where we have to really understand that in our countries, that when we civilised, are we really taking a financial based system over a child-centered approach? And this is really the message I want to get into today, and just sort of say that it shouldn't happen. And then there's people in positions of power that can sort of bridge that gap in understanding instead of breaking the bridge. Okay, instead of breaking that bridge, right? Instead of breaking the bridge, we need to really come to understanding and wisdom now. These people are sitting in council. They're not supporting the people. They're gaining profit from this. They're all sitting in judgment themselves, and the middleman isn't the yes man anymore. He's sat there as well with them all. It's almost like they've broken this side of the tree, where there's love, understanding, wisdom that comes from knowing our own childhoods. We can bring this forward to understanding the development of our minds, how we need that, how it's so important. And just because you got that doesn't mean that it's okay for another child not to get it, regardless of their system, whatever they came from, working class, middle class or upper class, okay? Because I have upper class morals and values, and I understand this, but I don't agree with financial set systems. So my morals are really high, okay? So, my nanny used to say it to me as well. She said, middle class, because it's our opinions, it's our moral footing that's more important than anything else, right? So we have to, from wisdom of understanding our own childhoods, what we needed to learn, what we didn't need to learn, we can sort of understand what we didn't have, what we did have, and then have that understanding. And it kind of, this is how we can develop on our own tree, to understand that these things shouldn't take place within our society. that we feel bad for these children because if we didn't have what we needed, or if we had that more, we could have developed quicker or whatever. And it's kind of like pushing everybody into a judgment where we have to self-analyze ourselves. Okay, we have to self-analyze the conditions of what's going on in our society when it comes to children, and taking child-centered approaches, and then we reach understanding, because I know, okay, this is what is beneficial for our society, this is what's beneficial for these children, and this is what's going to really gauge a world in evolutionary processes of, you know, manufacturing, inventions, creating a new world where we are protecting our children rather than dismantling a state for financial gain and handbags. Peace out.